Hi, my name is Callie Yanta, and I'd like to talk directly to the contractors who are building Planned Parenthood's new regional headquarters building in St. Paul. I've met a few of you at the construction site, so some of you are familiar with what I'd like to say here, but most of you aren't. So here's a little bit of background. First of all, who am I? I'm a wife and a mother. My husband and I have 6 kids. We have had 5 miscarriages in between all of those pregnancies. I used to be staunchly pro-choice for most of my life, but that changed in 1997 when I traveled to a third world country and saw men, women, and children who were so sick they'd been abandoned on the street like animals. And I started to really question how I viewed human life and how precious it is. Then in about 2 years from that point, I had my first baby. And honestly, when I held him in my arms, I realized I had been wrong. And I have been staunchly pro-life ever since. So why am I coming to you? That's a good question, because I've actually been criticized by my own family and friends about this. They say, leave these poor guys alone. They're just doing their job. They're not going to be performing the abortions at Planned Parenthood after they leave, and they're just trying to pay their bills. I agree with all of that. It's true. And I admire you for what you do, and I want you to know in no uncertain terms I do not judge you or look down on you for the work that you're doing. I'm coming to you because I believe you're the kind of guys who might actually listen, and I admire you. You're also men's men. You know how to put in a really hard day's work and go home with an aching back. I'm sure you don't get paid nearly what you should for what you do. You endure terrible weather conditions, but you do it anyway, and you take pride in your work. You're also the kind of guys that I believe if you're, say, walking across the street to McDonald's one day for lunch and you see a woman pushing her baby stroller across the street and a truck is coming that they don't see, I know you're the kind of guys who would risk it all to get them out of the way safely, and the kind of guys I'd want at my back if I were that woman. What I want you to do is imagine the woman you love the most. Your wife, your girlfriend, your mom, your sister, whoever it is, whoever you love the most, imagine sitting down with her and her sharing with you a very personal story about a past abortion. And here are some examples of what that story might entail.
I had to work that night, and I couldn't call in and say, you know, I'm sick, or I went to work, and when I came home after this day and I went to bed, I remember telling my friend that had made the appointment for me originally, I was like, I keep hearing this baby crying, and it keeps me up all night. I can't, it's just crying. And it was then where I was like, okay, I can't function knowing what is happening here. And I started filling that void and silencing those screams with anything I could get my hands on.
They told you it wouldn't hurt, just a little pinch. You might feel just a little bit of cramping. Well, when they open up your cervix, that's not a little bit of cramping. You're in labor at that point. And then they stuck the instrument in, it's a suction device. And I'll never forget it. After they finished sucking out the baby, our baby, well, mine at that time, there was a jar where the suction, whatever the contents would go into the jar. And it was a glass jar. And I remember looking over at the glass jar and all that blood and whatnot. And I didn't see parts, but I wanted to puke.
I would have never thought when I was doing this 22 years ago that I would be thinking about it now. You just thought it's going to be over and done, and you'd walk out and that would be it. Chapter closed. And that's not it. And that's not what happens.
People may say, you know, once you get this over with, your life will go on. Your life doesn't go on. You constantly are in pain about it. And you may not even realize that you're constantly in pain about it. You might think, my life is fine, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But there's always this nagging thing in the pit of your soul, in the back of your mind, and in the bottom of your heart.
The abortion clinics want to push speed because they will come across as being very caring about you personally, but it's all about money in the abortion industry.
I have 2 beautiful, healthy children that are gifts from God, and yet I still play tricks with my mind that someday they're going to be taken from me for what I did. And I know that not to be true. I know God doesn't do things to be spiteful or hurtful, but your mind continues to blame and be ashamed.
We're told as women that it's okay, it's not a big deal, all the myths, it's just a couple ounces of tissue, but only a human being could impact me like this. It's absolutely a baby.
There was no solution to this. It created nothing but problems. Every kind of psychological and emotional and spiritual and physical disorder that you can think of, I can tell you all about each and every one of them because I've experienced them. So what does abortion do to a woman? It ruins her.
Well, all I ask is that you think about what you've heard. Think about it today while you're at work. And I hope you'll come back tomorrow for message number 2.